Good evening, I'm Polly. The Madlanga Commission is back in the spotlight today with major developments that are shaking up the political landscape. After months of investigation, new evidence has surfaced, bringing the Commission's findings to the forefront of national conversation once again.
If it is truly voluntary, then no negative consequence can attach on the election of the voluntary choice. And that's where Chair and I think we agreed that we were ad idem in that regard, and then Chair moved on to, but what are the consequences if he chooses not to? And then are those subject to some or other bar? And I said to Chair, no, that's the ordinary consequence of how you determine evidence. So the point I'm making about the voluntariness of the proceeding and how it relates to the virus challenge is the degree to which the non-election to participate for the reasons in the medical report, which I would call gently a supervening medical impossibility, but be that as it may, if Chair is, and I think we're ad idem on this actually, if Chair is not going to attach any punitive consequence or coercive consequence to the election in the voluntary scenario.
Let me upfront tell you what I am, or rather what I think the Commission should do. The Commission is minded to refer Mr. Karim for a criminal process. What the relevant authorities do in that regard is for them to decide. Whether it's taken to the South African Police Service for them to see whether they can lay charges, or the National Prosecuting Authority for it to see whether to prosecute. That's their decision. That is what the Commission, as we are sitting here, is minded to do.
Yes.
So that will not be coercion by the Commission as such. It will be those functionaries who have the power to do whatever is within their remit to decide or do.
Correct.
That's what we are minded to do. So that you are not arguing in the dark.
Yes.
Let me upfront tell you what we are minded to do.
No, I'll deal with that. That's my last point, which I'll deal with about any such referral. So I'll come to that if I may. I just want to deal with this voluntary nature of the choice that was made. And I want to clarify that I was not suggesting that the voluntary choice given in paragraph 2 of the order was not a voluntary choice, and that was somehow coercive or involuntary or anything of the kind. I was simply reminding the commissioners about that voluntary characterization, because some of the language that was used about not subjecting himself to a medical examination was, to my mind at least, and if this is wrong, I accept that it's wrong, was going into the territory of adverse consequence for that. And that's why I was just reminding us about the debate we had about voluntariness.
I thought in the end, you and I agreed previously when we debated that point. I said to you, I was not talking about adverse consequences that would arise purely from the fact of failing to testify.
Then we're ad idem.
We were even then,
and we're still ad idem now.
I think you actually said so.
Yes, we're still ad idem. That's the only point I was making. That's the only point I was making.
You may continue then.
Thank you. My fourth comment on this issue about obtaining, because Ms. Hassam said something to the effect about the time consequence, only receiving it on the 12th, that there's limited time to receive their own expert rebuttal evidence, for lack of a better phrase, to obtain their own instructions regarding that and their next steps. All I'm going to say on that regard, in that regard, Chair, and not to reopen something we've moved beyond, is that's also part and parcel of the tender that was made as to why the doctor would make himself available. Because you'd remember the doctor didn't only say, obviously subject to in camera because it's about medical information, I'll come here and opine to you. express reference was made about cross-examining him and so on. So to the extent that there's been any prejudice caused to the Commission as a result of the late receipt of that report, all of those mechanisms which were tendered previously, and in fact the doctor tenders once again in the latest medical report, is available to the Commission. And if the Commission wants to do anything with that, their own witnesses and follow up however they want to, will be in the Commission's hands in that regard. But I must place that on the record, because any suggestion that my client is just running away from accountability and not himself, through his family and medical representatives, doing whatever he can to cooperate with the Commission in the circumstances in which he finds himself, needs to be responded to, and I won't take it further than that. Those mechanisms are there, and if they're going to be used, we'll cooperate to the extent that we can.
If one were to use the analogy of civil proceedings, what normally happens, yes, what you say does happen if one side, for whatever reason, does not have an expert.
Yeah.
But what usually happens is for the opposing side to have their expert consult with the plaintiff.
Yes.
And to then prepare their
Yes.
opposing report.
Yes.
And then the two experts get called.
Yes.
So now what we have here, there's resistance to that assessment, and what, I'm the one who should now read and comment on your reaction.
Yes, indeed. My shock and horror.
Now, what's happening here is, in addition to that resistance, the one doctor offers himself to appear before this commission and to be subjected to whatever questioning. So it's rather an odd one. But as I said right at the beginning of what I'm saying now, it does happen on the odd occasion that there may be one expert, but the norm is to have two opposing experts,
Yes.
both experts having examined
Yes.
the patient, done their own assessments, prepared individual reports on that patient. Yeah. Now let's hear you on that reaction.
I'm not sure I agree on where you ended, Chair, which is to say that both experts examine the patient and then give the differing rebuttal evidence. And the reason I say that is, obviously we're not in Rule 36 territory about the assessment of damage from medical injury or whatever the case might be. And also because it's a voluntary examination and it can't be compelled, that's why I disagree with the characterization in the way of this expert rebuttal process.
I'm not in the realm of the virus issue.
Agreed.
I'm
Neither
not
am I.
there at all.
Agreed. Neither
I'm
am I.
just at the level of how evidence of this nature is ordinarily dealt with. How it plays itself out in a court environment. That's all I'm debating.
We're in the same place.
Yeah,
I'm not in the V-raise.
So the voluntariness, compulsion, and so on does not arise in that context.
Agreed. I was just saying that those are the important context issues which need
I've not forgotten
to be considered.
I've not forgotten.
I'm indebted. So the point that I would make regarding that process that Chair posits to me about rebuttal witnesses and contrasting experts, and Chair says is in the ordinary course, that's what I was saying a bit earlier about less intrusive means about the available to the Commission. If the doctor's evidence, which Mr. Karim's doctor's evidence, which relies on his objectivity, is in dispute. And that's the basis through which it can be impugned as a less intrusive means without taking us into a V-raise problem about is this voluntary examination voluntary or not voluntary. So I would respectfully say that what Chair has posited to me is the exact thing that the doctor has been tendering, and I think, in fact, in correspondence, Mr. Karim's own attorney said, let's do it this way so that you can get the degree of satisfaction that you require. Now, I understand, Chair, to say that, that might be how it's ordinarily done in the High Court and maybe it's different in the Commission or whatever. All I'm saying is that's a process that's available, and if my learned friend contends that there's prejudice suffered as a result of the lateness of the report, whatever unfolds as a result, now that they have the report and their possession will unfold, and we'll deal with it as we need to deal with it. But the fact that the mechanism is available, which we on behalf of Mr. Karim
The Commission is expected to release a supplementary report by the end of the week addressing these specific new allegations. We'll be following this story closely as it develops. I'm Polly, and you're watching the Evening Update. Stay